All right. Hello. We're going to start the stream in about 5 minutes, or actually maybe 3 minutes. It'll be pretty short. My goal is to finish in about 20 to 25 minutes. It's probably going to be my last Camp Fiveable stream, but I'll be streaming for, oh, hello. I'll be streaming for AP Lang throughout this school year, so I'm not gone yet. I'm actually going to go into presenter view. I'm so excited. I might have an audience of 1 today. We'll see about that. Oops. Reload. Wait for a few people to trickle in. I know it's like Saturday and normally people don't want to be listening to someone talk, but maybe we'll see and find some people. Oops. By the way, hello, Fatima. Nice to see you. Oh, my computer's like starting to overheat too. Yeah. Honestly, like, where are the who would like, what class does this relate? I guess AP World, but not particularly, because their new content kind of stops at like 2015. Like, I'm just like trying to think like who would care, and I'm like, not a lot of students, unless like you know for a fact you're dedicated to an international relations major or an international economics or international politics major. I don't know if this stream really matters, although I'm glad to see that someone cares. Oh yeah, AP Comp Gov. That is true. All right, I'll get started in about 1 minute. Which, by the way, I don't know if I'm self-studying for that exam. I might as well. Like, 3 of the colleges I'm applying to accept it for either elective credit or for like real credit. So like, why wouldn't I do it, you know? I forgot AP Comp Gov existed, although I don't think any of the 4 countries I'm covering today are in AP Comp Gov, because they have like Nigeria, Russia. I might be completely wrong, but I'm pretty, like, Mexico for sure, but like these governments are not included. All right, let's get started. Hi, I'm Brandon Wu, and this is my global elections present and future stream. Basically, what present and future means is that we're going to be covering elections that have happened, like most recently late July, all the way to future elections that are coming up soon. So first of all, I should talk about Fiveable. It's honestly fantastic. They're the only reason why I've been able to stream 7 times over the summer. And you should totally go follow their Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube channel. Go check them out on all their social media because they are incredibly valuable. They're trying to make AP much more accessible. And honestly, all of your APs will be Fiveable if you are coming to live streams throughout the year. Also, I highly encourage you to get Fiveable Plus if you're not already a student streamer or an intern for Fiveable, because what Fiveable Plus gives you is access to Fiveable's entire content library, which means you can watch skills replays and really practice and go back to streams that you weren't able to show up to. So in this stream, I'm basically going to be covering 4 elections. The first is Japan's House of Councilors. The second is the Ukrainian Parliament. The third is the Guatemalan general election. And the fourth is the Tunisian presidential election. Now, the first 3 have already happened. Oops. Japan and Ukraine both happened on July 21st. Once again, the Japanese one was a parliamentary election. They sort of function like the Senate, in which, like, half of the seats sometimes go up for re-election, although the Senate is like a third or a sixth, I forgot. So half the seats went up. And then in Ukraine, there were snap parliamentary elections because of the new president, President Zelensky, I think. And then in Guatemala and Tunisia, Guatemala had a general election for president, Congress, and municipal elections. And Tunisia is going to have a presidential election in about a month. It is their presidential election. So let's start with Japan. So Shinzo Abe's Liberal Democratic Party is obviously the ruling party there. And right now he has a supermajority in the lower house, but he was trying to get a 2/3 majority in the upper house, basically so he could just functionally, so he could pass constitutional amendments, because Prime Minister Abe had this whole goal to like pass a constitutional amendment in 2020, basically to like allow for democratic reforms, although that didn't happen yet. Also, we see that there are a bunch of other parties in Japan, such as the Constitutional Democratic Party, who stands mainly on a center-left ideology, the Komeito Party, which is a conservative religious, like traditional religious party, and the DFP, or the Democratic for the People Party, who is center-right. And basically, they were trying to run against Abe on things like raising the minimum wage, postponing tax hikes, and once again, only 124 out of 245 seats were up for election. And basically, he was trying to get a 2/3 majority established by his party and the Komeito Party, basically to allow for revisionism. But the funny thing is that Abe set like an internal party goal, and his personal goal was to have 123 seats, which shows that like he himself knew that like he had 125 seats to start and he wanted to go down, but that's cool. The reason why he set a low target is because he was fighting corruption allegations, and he had this whole like governmental issue in which there was a shortfall in pension funds. Basically, like the government might have been corrupt, but Prime Minister Abe was like, nah, that didn't happen. So that's the pre-election information. Basically, half of the upper house of the Japanese House of Councillors was up for re-election, and Prime Minister Abe was just trying to continue his majority. And what happened was that, his party actually lost seats, but overall his government still had 125. So technically he reached his goal. In that picture on the bottom, you can see his party actually celebrating their majority. Oh, we have a question. Fatma asks, are the corruption allegations being investigated? I believe they still are. I'd have to do a little bit of extra research and get back to you. But currently, Prime Minister Abe has continued to fight accusations of being corrupt. And I think the reason why is because like there's like alleged like financial corruption. Although from the looks of it, I'm pretty sure he survived the scandal. And like, as I can see now, like I'm pretty sure, for instance, like if you look up Japan corruption on Google News right now, like it's not really being covered. So I'm guessing like they're just keeping it on the Japan's version of the Justice Department is probably still privately investigating, but like no results have come out yet. That's my answer, I think. All right, we'll continue. So Shinzo Abe's party did lose seats, but the Komeito Party increased seats. What happened in 2016 was that there was technically a 2/3 revisionist majority. And what revisionist means is like people included in the LDP and these other like parties that want to revise the Constitution. So in 2016, in that parliamentary election, there technically was a 2/3 majority to revise the Constitution, but they lost that majority in 2019. The Constitutional Democratic Party grew 8 seats, and then a few other parties lost seats. And like, if you read like the multiple foreign newspapers and like news organizations who publish information, basically what you can see is that Prime Minister Abe is practically undefeatable. Like he has an overwhelming majority, 113 seats. That's more than every other party on that list. And basically, Japan is becoming more of a one-party state, and we're seeing that not a lot of compromise and like compromise across party lines, I guess, is really happening in Japan. And that's like kind of the issue, because like no party is actually like standing against Abe and trying to like defeat his policies. So like, although he's been doing pretty well for Japan's economy, I'd say, and like he continues to tout his deals with President Trump, we can still see that like no one has really found something to attack him on, and therefore like his party is still in the lead. So now we'll move on to Ukraine. So I'm going to butcher all these names. Volodymyr Zelensky called for a snap election in May of 2019, basically because what happened was that the old president was President Poroshenko, and his party was technically still in the rule of parliament. And what was happening is kind of like what the Republicans did under President Obama. They basically didn't pass any legislation. They put everything on hold. So President Zelensky was like, hey, I can't do anything because Congress is just obstructing. So he called for a snap election, and technically what happened was that there was like a lawsuit by the opposition party, and the court ultimately ruled that the snap election was legal because it did have a valid reason, because there was technically not a parliamentary government. So as you can see, before 2019, in 2014, I believe, this parliamentary map here on the right, it shows the parliament breakdown under President Poroshenko, who is the European Solidarity Party leader, technically. So as you can see, they technically had a government of 129 seats. And while there is technically more opposition members than government members, Ukraine's parliament is very odd in that they technically make coalitions, but the only party that is the government party is the president's party. I know, it's really odd. And what happened in the 2019 elections were that two new parties emerged. One was Servant of the People, that was President Zelensky's party. And I don't know if you know, but Ukraine's current president was actually a TV star. And in a TV series, he was an actor who became president under the party Servant for the People. Kind of ironic. And another party, Arisen, I don't know. They're called Opposition Platform for Life. And that is a party that is dedicated to opposing Zelensky. So like, I'm just going to call it like Servant of the People, STP. It's just a little bit easier. But the STP was trying to basically increase seats because they had 0, and the opposition was trying to contest the presidential results. And Fatherland, which is another party, former President Poroshenko's European Solidarity, and the Voice Party were all trying to keep their seats. All right, we have a question. Do they have to make a ruling coalition to get anything done if they don't have a majority? Yes, and that is what European Solidarity did. They had to make a ruling coalition because they only had 129 seats and they needed 226 technically to have that ruling majority. I believe they partnered with the People's Front. I might be wrong. Good question. All right. So that should say election results, but the Servant of the People won with an overwhelming majority. And that was a really good question because what happened was that they actually won enough seats to have a supermajority, meaning that they did not have to have any party work with them, because you need 225 to have a majority. There were 254 seats won by the Servant of the People. And it's the first time in Ukraine's entire political history that one party controls government, which is pretty amazing. And like, it shows that the Ukrainian people really want change, which is really what Servant of the People is running on. No corruption, pro-Europe, and like really advocating for these policies that were kind of moving away from Russia and more towards Europe. And actually, a lot of observers, including the EU, worry that like there's going to be a power grab and that President Zelensky, with like one party ruling the government, could lead to like some potential corruption, but we haven't really seen anything emerge from that front yet, given that they haven't even been inaugurated yet. These this new parliament does not actually like give their oath of office, and they don't actually become parliament members until September 5th. Also, Poroshenko's party, which I don't know if you could see previously, had, we'll go back, previously had 129 seats. They fell all the way to 25 seats. They also changed their color, funny enough. Whereas the opposition platform party obviously added 43 seats. The Fatherland party increased 6 seats, and Servant of the People dominated with 254 seats. So we have yet to see really the results of the Ukrainian election, given that Zelensky has only been in power for about 3 months. But we're going to see what happens in Ukraine. And honestly, it's like really problematic because in Ukraine, specifically on the eastern side, there's the conflict in Donbass, and there's a conflict in Crimea with Russia's annexation. So both like President Zelensky and his party, the Servant of the People, have really promised to take action and get Ukrainian land back, but we haven't really seen those results yet. Now, the third election is Guatemala. So they have a 2-round system, which a lot of countries do. Basically, in the first round, a bunch of candidates run, and in the second round, the top 2 candidates get to actually like run against each other. And this is a general election, so both Congress and the presidential election happen on the same day. So in the first round of elections, Torres of the new National Unity of Hope Party won 25% in the first round with 1.1 million votes, whereas Giamatti of the Vamos Party only had 13.95%, which is around 600,000 votes. And then the third and fourth place people were Mulet of the Humanist Party and Carbera of the Movement for the Liberation of People's Party. And former President Morales' party was eighth. And I don't know if you know, but the previous president was term limited. I think he served 3 terms, President Jimmy Morales of Guatemala. So his party actually was 8th in the general election, which shows that people really didn't approve of his party's policies. And Sandra Torres, the woman down here, or actually, I don't know why I'm pointing, the woman in the bottom left corner, she ran in 2015, but only got 32% of the vote in the second round. And that's going to show something. Like, she has been like accused of money laundering and tax evasion. She's pretty problematic, like illegal campaign financing. But technically because she was in the election, she had immunity against like impeachment, or not impeachment, immunity against like prosecution. But now that, like, no spoilers, but she is now getting prosecuted right now. And Giamatti stood trial for extrajudicial killings of inmates as the prisoner director. But he got acquitted. So there's like alleged abuse for both candidates. And that's why what happened was that when we look towards 2015, the parliament too, now we're moving away from the president and moving towards Congress, we can look towards the fact that the NCF, or President Morales' party, was not even close to having a majority. They didn't even have the most amount of seats. So they were in a coalition with a bunch of parties. So the election results, Giamatti of Vamos won with 59% of votes. He was a conservative, and Giamatti promised to label gang members terrorists, and he was going to be tough on crime and create 2 million more jobs, whereas Torres of the UNE lost with 42% of the votes. So when she had 1.1 million votes in the first round, she only grew to 1.3 million, whereas Giamatti grew to 1.9 million from 600,000. And many people were unsatisfied with both candidates because, once again, one was accused of prison abuse and the other was accused of illegal campaign financing. And the parliamentary election saw that the UNE, or Torres's party, actually grow from 24 to 52 seats. Vamos went from 0 to 16, and President Morales' party, FCN, went down from 35 to 8 seats. So they lost 27 seats. Some other news that is happening in Guatemala, it's kind of worrying. The UN-backed International Commission Against Impunity in Guatemala, which is kind of like a court system, they're shutting down because President Morales basically didn't renew their contract. So people are pretty upset that there might be more human rights abuse happening in Guatemala, and that President Giamatti is not really going to do anything about it. Also, President Giamatti has to cooperate with President Trump and the US on what's called the Third Country Agreement, which is basically an agreement that says, look, if you have Central American migrants who are trying to come to the US, you have to like be willing to accept asylum applicants in Guatemala as a third country, technically. So President Morales did not sign that agreement, and now President Giamatti has to cooperate with President Trump on this whole agreement. And basically, it's President Trump's initiative to try and like decrease illegal immigration flows by going straight to the root of the cause. So we're going to see how that ends up turning out. All right, do we have any questions? I'll pause for about a minute, and then I'll move on to the final country, which is Tunisia, because all 3 of these elections have already happened. The first 2, Ukraine and Japan, happened on July 21st, and the Guatemalan election happened about 2 weeks ago. And if there are no questions, I'll move straight on to Tunisia. Don't want to waste your time because I kind of want this stream to be over in about 20-25 minutes. Let's keep it short. And by the way, during the school year, if you're like if you're going to be one of our APs, like if you're in the audience of students, AP students who are like listening to different AP subject streams, just so you know, those streams are about 50 to 60 minutes long. So they're not going to be as short as mine are. Like, I don't know if you've been to my SAT, ACT streams. Those were about 30 minutes, but those streams are going to be about twice as long. All right, doesn't seem like there are any questions, so we'll move on to Tunisia. So there's no post-election because election hasn't happened yet. This is the second direct presidential election since 2011, when there was a revolution in Tunisia. And I think there's a Ben Ali, he was like a military official. He was overthrown in 2011. And incumbent Beji Caid Essebsi died in office in July with 5 months left in his term, which led to an election being called. So Tunisia is very annoying. Like, love the Tunisian people, but like they have 26 different candidates. And like, here's the issue, like the opinion polls aren't too trustworthy. And so like when you read articles from different news outlets around the world in Africa and Europe and North America, they all say different candidates are in the lead. So I'm going to go through 9 of the 26, so a third of the pool, and we'll see what each one has about it. So Popular Front leader Hama Hamemi is actually running on the left, and he placed third in 2014, which was the last election cycle. So many people are saying, oh, this guy ran a few years ago in the last election. He got third. He's a proven candidate. He could win. Parliament Speaker Abdel Fattah Moreau is actually like running as a candidate for Tunisia's largest political party, which is Ennahda. It's pretty crazy because in the past like 2 elections, this party Ennahda, who had the most parliamentary seats, has never fielded a presidential candidate. They've just opted to endorse another one, but they have their candidate and they picked the Speaker of the Parliament, which is like a pretty good choice. They also, there's another man named Youssef Chahed. He is currently the head of government or the prime minister of Tunisia. He's running on the platform of the second largest party, which is Taya Tunis. There's also Abdelkarim Zebidi, the current defense minister, who's running for the party Nida Tunes. I know I'm just saying words at this point, but you'll see what I mean. Like, the Tunisian political system allows for a lot of people to run. And what happens as a result is that you have so many people in the top level cabinet running against each other. There's also businessman Nabil Karouri. He has actually been accused of tax fraud and money laundering just about a week ago, but he's the front runner in opinion polls because he's a businessman. You see kind of a pattern across the world, like business people are doing really well. So if you want to be a politician, don't major in political science. You should totally major in business. This is not official advice. Don't follow me. There's also lawyer Abir Musi. He is the Free Historian Party leader. He's been placing like third in opinion polls, so I guess he's pretty popular. There's also former President Monsef Marzouki, and that former president means he was actually the first president in 2011. So when the revolution ended, this guy stepped up and won election, but in 2014, he's got second. So we have the person who got second and the person who got third in 2014 running for president in 2019. And finally, the last person, lawyer Munir Bator, he's getting like 0 to 1% in opinion polls. But what's really interesting is that he's an openly gay man running in Tunisia, and technically homosexuality is illegal, but it's only illegal if you practice it. So he's not technically breaking any rules. And he's calling for the repeal of these like French colonial laws that don't allow for homosexuality, or adultery, I think is what it's called. So yeah, those are pretty much the major candidates. Also, another fun fact, I forgot the guy's name, but there's another lawyer who's running who actually got accused of corruption in a court in Tunisia. So he was like prosecuted and then he fled the country. And about like 5 days ago on the election deadline night, when he was like in some other country abroad, which he's obviously not disclosing, he actually filed to run for president. So even though he's accused for corruption and a federal court has already indicted him and there's a warrant for his arrest, he's running for president because Tunisia does not have any laws that forbids that. And the few opinion polls that have been conducted show that Karouri, or the guy who's been accused of corruption, he's in first place. Sayed, who I actually did not include, sorry, I didn't mention, is a law professor. He's in second. And Musi, or the other lawyer, is third. He's the Free Historian Party leader. So as you can see, like the Tunisian political climate is very, very different from the United States and other countries. Like if you think about it, like this is as if like President Trump ran against Mike Pence, who ran against Jeff Sessions, who ran against Nancy Pelosi for president. Like if all 4 of them were candidates in the presidential election, except if they were all in different parties. Like that's essentially what's happening in Tunisia, which is pretty crazy. So I thought it was really interesting to like do some research and spend like an hour reading through different articles from different continents about Tunisia and the 26 different presidential candidates. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions about the 4 countries I discussed today, that would be Japan, Ukraine, Guatemala, and Tunisia, please let me know in the next minute or so. Otherwise, the stream is over. We have an audience of 2. Hello. Gosh, I have to study for SAT subject tests. I'm going to be so sad. It's okay. All right, well, there does not seem to be any questions. So thank you so much for coming, both of you. I really appreciate it. And to all those people who happen to be watching the replay, hello. Thank you so much for coming to my stream. Have a great day, and I hope you do well in school or whatever standardized tests you're taking.